You are listening to Scenecraft Nightcap. Welcome to another Nightcap, a series of bonus episodes where we pull back from the scene and into the wider world of film. But this time, we're actually diving even deeper into the recent release, Weapons. Once again, this is Cody here with my fellow classmates,
Mark,
and Connor.
We have a very special Pro Take interview today on this Nightcap with the hair, makeup, and effects team on Weapons. And as usual, beware of spoilers ahead.
Is there anyone there?
Yes, what do you see?
Spoilers! Right ahead!
Thank you.
We'd like to welcome on Jason Collins, Leo Satkovich, and Meliza Wheat. Thank you for joining us on Scenecraft today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. We're excited to be here.
Thank you for having us.
So this being the Pro Take section of the podcast, we always like to start with a little background on how Weapons became the film that it is. Would you mind introducing yourselves and your role on the film and telling us a little bit about what led to your involvement with Weapons in the first place?
My name's Meliza Wheat. I'm the department head hairstylist on the show. Very proud to have been part of it. You know, I have a work history with the productions in town, and they invited me to do the show, and I was so excited about being part of the team. It came to me. I was very lucky.
My name is Leo Satkovich, and I'm the makeup department head on the film. And this was a film that I've been tracking for quite some time. It had another cast previous to the strikes, and then it went away during the strikes. It came back after the strikes, and I was just extremely fortunate to have been called and interviewed for it. I knew it was going to be the job of a lifetime, and it did not disappoint.
My name is Jason Collins. I'm the special makeup effects designer for the show. I came to the project as a referral from Leo, and when I went in to meet with Zach and Miri, the producer of the film, me and Miri had realized we worked on another film together called Don't Worry, Darling. And so that kind of helped as well. But then when we all sort of got in that room together and got Leo on the Zoom, and it was kind of a great magic sort of moment. And I think we were all speaking the same language as we started to talk about the tone of the film.
Amazing. So we'd love to start with Gladys, who I think it's safe to say is now an instant horror icon. What goes into the development and application of the many looks for Gladys that we end up getting on the screen? And what was the back and forth like between you, Zach Kreger, Amy Madigan to land on those looks? Maybe each of you could dig into your specific process. You could take us through the hair, makeup, and prosthetic effects that we're seeing on Gladys.
Yeah, I think it was really important that, the other overwhelmingly contributing member to this collaborative group was Trish Somerville, the costume designer, who really also helped to set the tone for Gladys. And when designing Gladys, I think it was important for all of us, for me, Jason, Meliza, Trish, the studio, and Gladys was really rooted in reality. It was really about finding that perfect balance of a real person that was not a supernatural villain. We wanted Aunt Gladys to live in reality. We wanted to feel like we could see Aunt Gladys out in the wild and not think twice about it. So, and we also really wanted to make her an eye-catching horror icon, in her own right. So it was really just finding that delicate balance of horror, camp, and reality, while also making it functional for Amy Madigan. I mean, everyone's seen the film, so we know that Aunt Gladys is a very intense role. So it's very important to us as hair and makeup designers that Amy Madigan felt comfortable in her hair and makeup, that she was able to emote effectively and really get that jarring terror translated in the film.
Yeah, I think, from a prosthetic standpoint with Gladys, it was, we'd always sort of, at the very beginning of the film in prep, Zach had a few references that he spoke of, and one of them was Cindy Sherman and Diane Arbus, and we had mood boards and everything that we put together to sort of try to figure out what this look was going to be, and we knew she was going to have multiple looks. So And with Trish Somerville getting in there with the costume colors and design, and she had a lot of ideas as well and a lot of lookbooks already. So we were able to sort of really all kind of powwow about it and get down to the bottom of what and how she should look. We did some conceptual things, starting out with obviously her sick look, as she gets later in the film, because that was really important. And also just some alterations of some of the makeup tests that we did to sort of really sort of land on the exact things that we should do. And one of the sort of things that when we sort of get into these things, you talk with directors about kind of what they want to avoid or kind of what the idea is behind a character. And with Gladys, it was yeah, she's got this sort of overwhelming thing from the 60s kind of vibe going on and things like that, but it's also kind of on an odd way somebody's interpretation of a certain time period, like maybe they had stopped looking at fashion magazines in the 60s and that kind of thing. So
Mhm.
it was that kind of approach to it, but from a prosthetics perspective, we knew we wanted to do a couple of things for her. We knew that when you first saw her in the film, which I'll let Leo speak to, as far as her generalized look and makeup and everything, there is this sort of audaciousness to it. And then when we see her at home, when she's talking with Alex and his parents are there, and there's that whole gruesome scene that sort of takes place, she shifts gears and she looks completely different.
Mhm.
And the main thing that we really wanted to get across is that there is a ferocity to her as well. There's a lot of different levels to Gladys. One is that crazy audaciousness, and the other was she can sort of switch on a dime, and there's a ferociousness to her. And that look really sort of came down to this thing that me and Leo had really discussed, and Zach, which was this kind of like bird of prey kind of thing. And we did these contacts for her where we narrowed her pupils down, and so it looks more like a bird sort of really focused in on you as a prey. And then we did a nose appliance which really gave her this kind of beak-like look. And of course, we elongated her ears, which elongates her whole head, and we added these amazing teeth based off of a real gums disease that we had researched, where people have too many gums and it sort of makes them look like they have baby teeth. So it's those things that really help set the tone for her to have multiple looks throughout the entire film. So, it's those things all need to play together with what Leo's designing and doing and with what Meliza's designing and doing. So it was really important that all of us were on the same page. And, as Leo said before, it's like it was a kismet kind of thing where we were all in the same rhythm on the thing. And, that's really how Gladys was born. I can let Meliza speak to the hair on that, because the hair, you cannot have Gladys without the hair.
Right.
Like you can't without the makeup, like you can't without the costume.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was quite a bit of a trifecta. It was a very powerful design together. Like we needed all the parts attached for it to be effective.
Mhm.
What I love about designing the look for Gladys is what we'll call her hero look in hair, because she has multiple hero looks in my mind. But the micro fringe is always pristine and on point, and the rest is it has a little bit of volume. It's not always symmetrical. It's got a little bit of quirkiness to it. She's this woman that she just doesn't take care of her. What we believe is this wig. And where did this wig come from? It's like it's a very powerful kind of like, it's bold and it has something
Yeah.
to say,
Mhm.
but it's also trapped in like this time bubble. Like, when did she find this wig?
Mhm.
So that was really cool to play into various textures for different scenes, nightmare scenes. It's a little more crimped and cracked out. The fringe is a little broken. It's a little oily. It's sweaty. But yeah, I think what was really kind of cool is also that when she's got the turban on, I think that kind of lends a hand to, whoa, there's something really not quite right under that turban. The wig is not like a part of the package, and you just see this incredible strong face, and the
Mhm.
lobes, and I mean, I just said a whisper of white hairs coming out, and
Mhm.
I think it gives the audience that like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Okay, women wear wigs, but what the hell's right? And so it kind of gave visually, at least in my mind, in Hairland, somewhere to go. It's a lot of fun developing the looks for her and the transitions. Pretty fun challenge.
Yes.
Amy's amazing, and the makeup team's just incredible. So it was really
Yeah.
a powerful team and actors. So it was good.
Incredible.
I think Meliza hit the nail on the head when she said challenge, because I wish I could say that this was easy, but it was not. It was almost like everything that we wanted to do with Gladys, your initial concept of a horror villain, we did the exact opposite. So it's like, no, you wanted crazy contacts on her, and we completely pivoted, did a 180, and we did something that was so super subtle. Like Jason said, Christina Patterson and Eye Ink Effects, it was just a wizard with contacts, designed these beautiful small iris lenses so that when her eye is open and at rest, you saw the entirety of the iris, which is not something that's biologically normal to humans. So it's a little off-putting when you do see it, almost like a bird. When a bird turns and stares at you and you can see the entirety of the iris beaming down at you, is very creepy. And then, of course, you think horror villain and you think shredding teeth, something terrifying. And then Jason was like, what if we went the complete opposite direction? There's something very unsettling about baby teeth and seeing a lot of gums.
Yeah.
And from there, it just evolved into this whole character, like maybe she was stuck in the 60s, which, was a vain point of view of my own, because I love the 60s and I love the 60s makeup. And then when we started to see Trish Somerville go with that color blocking pantsuits, and we really leaned into the 60s aspect of it, and we wanted to do this big makeup, of course, and then again completely pivoted, did a 180 to where it was almost like her makeup was in a constant state of degradation. It was almost very deconstructed, like she had it on forever. She didn't know what she was doing. It got to the point to where my hand physically could not draw awful eyebrows like that. So I actually had to design her eyebrows. I had to put it into a design program. And I made them into very faint tattoos.
Wow.
So then I would put them on her and then go over them with a powder, because I could not draw fucking ugly eyebrows like that. And my life depended on it. So I had to take the time and put them into a design program. From there, I just became totally inspired by, Jane Hudson, whatever happened to Baby Jane. And I just love that period, and I love that makeup, and it all just blended together. And then Meliza put the wig on, and we thought, how creepy would it be if this wig just sat on top of her head? And we realized Amy didn't have enough forehead space to really get that jarring look. So we ended up going with a half bald pate to elongate her forehead another few inches to make it look like she really had nothing going on under there, which again, it was all about those subtle details that we didn't want to make a complete transformative makeup. We wanted to rely on very small, subtle details that was acted almost as a prop for Amy Madigan. We didn't want to cover up Amy. We wanted to showcase Amy and Aunt Gladys. And so it was really about finding that nice balance between hair, makeup, special effect.
Yeah. You want the performance to come through. You don't want people to be hindered. So it becomes then about making the right choices. And, I think that once we started finding these threads of the right choices, it was great that we all sort of built on that together. And, I've worked with a lot of makeup teams in the past, and sometimes you'll start working with people and everybody has a different idea. The makeup kind of ends up in a place where it's like, yeah, this is suitable, and there's a little of this, and there's a little of that, and there's a little of this. But this one really kind of came together with a rhythm. And, it was really one of those sort of moments where it was like we were all of the same mind. And you never know what's going to be iconic. You're just going with your gut half the time. And the fact that people have responded the way they've responded has been, that's a tribute to Zach and very much a tribute to Amy. And, just all of us sort of like, I think this is pretty amazing. I hope the world thinks it's pretty amazing. And when people start to respond, you're like, all right, we did all right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's really fascinating to hear all the thought that went into these details, because it really paints Gladys not just as a horror villain, but like a real person. And so I really appreciate all that detail. And you guys have mentioned a couple here with the contact lenses and the forehead heightening, but Are there any other little details that you guys incorporated into her design that you're particularly proud of that may be unnoticed from a first-time viewer? Anything to look out for on a second viewing?
The earlobes. I mean, I want Jason to
Earlobes.
talk more about those. You know, it's like we didn't have a lot to work off of regarding her interpretation as far as the script goes. So Zach really worked one-on-one with all of us with, you know, really building this character. And when Jason brought up earlobes, it's like, this is perfect. It's like this woman is audacious. She's gaudy, and she has worn clip-on earrings. You know, clip-on earrings her whole life that had really just dragged down these earlobes.
Yeah.
It's such a cool detail.
I actually think that idea may have, I mean, I'd always talked about lengthening her face, and I think for a moment we were talking about chins and things like that. And
Yeah.
I think the lobes, that idea may have come from the design that Trish was working on. I saw she put these heavy earlobes in it, and I think we'd started talking about that, Leo, and Trish had started talking about that, and we're like, wouldn't that be great? And that's when I think I was like, oh, well, that's a great way to lengthen the face and elongate everything as well. But again, it's that kismet sort of chemistry that we all have, and we're all thinking of the same thing. You know, costume designer mentions one thing, and then, you know, we build upon it. And that's that subtle detail is fantastic. And I haven't heard many people comment on that. I think there's that, and the fact that we got rid of her eyebrows. And when you get rid of somebody's eyebrows, it really changes up the landscape of their face completely.
Yeah.
And that was tough because Amy's got some healthy eyebrows.
Normally, when I have a wig on someone or I'm using their natural bangs, I measure usually from the bang line to their eyebrows, but there were no eyebrows. So, I mean, it just made it, so I had to measure her micro bang to the tip of her nose, which was quite exciting.
And how many inches was that? What was the magic number?
4 inches. Yeah.
I was just going to ask that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are all these pictures with Meliza with her measuring tape.
With her
Every
measuring
time at Last Looks, every time Meliza's there with her measuring tape to make sure, you know, I mean, she may, you know, Aunt Gladys may look like a mess, but it's those little details. And Meliza was in there at Last Looks every take measuring to make sure it was perfect. You know, that's how the character comes together.
And how did you land on that color for the wig as well?
It was already locked in that Gladys would have red hair. I wasn't sure what level of red it was going to be. There was no details in the script about a specific red. So during the camera test, I had 23 wigs of different types of reds, you know, some with more copper, some were lighter, some were darker, some had more of a blue undertone. And so we tested all these wigs and different lengths, different bangs, some with longer bangs, some with the fringe. So at our camera test, we found the winning wig, we'll call it. So it was a nice challenge for me to try to get those looks, for it to look like something she picked up somewhere.
Right.
Who knows when, but
Yeah, I think that's one thing we love about what you guys have done for the character is I can't recall in recent history, at least, when the craft behind a character aligns so well with the performer and the character itself and kind of giving you little puzzle pieces and breadcrumbs along the way to discovering who she is, along with her like witchcraft of it all. So it's just incredible. And I know we could probably talk about Gladys for another hour, but throughout Weapons, we get several moments of heightened violence that really sell the supernatural groundwork of the film. And that includes some of our favorites, which all happen to include trauma to the face. So we get a veggie peeler to the cheek. We get multiple fork wounds. We get used syringes, a head smashing in the kitchen. Can you guys walk us through how these effects were achieved? Were they practical on the day? How was that done? Because ultra realism is really what allows us to believe in the power of this witchcraft that Gladys is capable of.
Everything that you mentioned was practical.
Wow.
Everything.
And I think, you know, we have to give some of our teammates some credit here as well, because Leo put together a fantastic trailer team full of people that had both experience in, you know, obviously character makeup, beauty makeup, and effects prosthetic makeup. There wasn't one person in that trailer that wasn't capable of of stepping in and helping out. And Mark Ross was a big part of that, which was Leo's key.
Yes.
And then Kaylee Swisher. Yeah, they were great. And so yeah, when you're doing this kind of film, you do a lot of testing, of course, and you sort of try to figure out the right way to go. Like with the syringes in the face, I was talking with Zach at the beginning, and I was like, to really get this right, you got to have a plate, and you got to have a whole thing, and we got to lose the actor for an hour, go back to the trailer, and put him in there, and he goes, well, these aren't really heavy syringes. Can you get the syringes and just mess around with them? So we got them into my studio, and I realized that all you really had to do was cut the tips in a certain way, an angle, and then you glue them into the face. And it was like, that was a really simplistic fix for something. And with how he framed it and how quick it went, it was really effective, I thought, when Alden stabbed in the face with all the syringes and everything.
Yeah.
They're just hanging there, and he grabs them and pulls them out, One of the things I will say, and I'll let Leo speak some to this as well, which is, when you read the script, 2/3 of the script, you're kind of like, okay, is this a horror movie? What's happening here? These kids disappear. There's a mystery, but is there something that's going to happen here that's going to require my services besides, helping with Gladys and things like that? And then 2/3 of it, you get into the script, you're like, oh shit, this film's tone just completely changed. And and that's the kind of thing where Zach was like, it's not gore for gore's sake. It is definitely gore for punching up the moment and for story's sake. And that was the approach that we wanted to take with everything. And so Leo and I were sort of talking about these effects and everything. It was how to be strategic with them, how to be very, very clean with them, how to have an approach of realism with them, because the stories taking those turns are really what's going to put in the heightened horror aspect of it. So as long as you keep everything real and visceral and very tactile, the story is going to do its job for you, so you don't really have to go over the top.
Yeah.
One thing in my mind that stands out is the fork gag. And when you read the script, you're like, oh, you're going to need blood bladders. You're going to need blood splurting everywhere. It's going to be a mess. It's going to be a fucking crime scene. And it's crazy. And then when you go back and you think about that moment, I can just think about Amy's ECU, her extreme close-up, and the only thing that I think about is I can make your parents hurt themselves. I can make them hurt each other. I can make them eat each other if I want to. And it's like the fork stabbing just took a background to Amy's acting and Zach's directing. He gives you these really beautiful moments and then punches you in the face with these really gross moments and then pulls it back with masterful acting and directing. And the way that Larkin shot it, it's just, it's crazy. When you read the script, there were some of these gags. The one that stands out again in my mind is the veggie peeler, and in my head I'm like, oh my gosh, this is kind of campy, this is going to be so strange. And then the way it was shot with Julia in focus in the background and Alden is dirty in the foreground, so you don't see the action of the peeling, you see the idea of it. And I would love Jason to talk more about those pieces, because it was so wild the way that we were able to do it. And then when Julia's able to grab Alden's side piece and shoot him in the throat. I mean, we've had to do that over and over. Zach wanted just this perfect shot of the blood coming out that was all done practically. It's just so cool how you're able to read a script one way and you see it in your head one way, and the way that Zach was able to execute it on film. It's really cool.
Yeah, I think, Leo, you bring up a good point with the makeup effects, because even every makeup effect in the film, it's a character makeup, right? Okay, so if you look at the parents stabbing themselves with the fork, they then carry those wounds throughout the film. Meliza did this great thing with the stages of the hair and everything, and they become part of a character makeup. This is their character now. This is how they look. It enriches that sort of thing. So instead of just being like, oh, this is going to be gross and we're just going to gore everybody out, it's much more of a character makeup approach to the whole thing. When you see Benedict Wong after he smashed his husband's head in and he's running, it's a character makeup, even though it's all black and nasty and blood and everything. And, that's a character makeup, so it's like, the veggie peeler is a part of, he's possessed. And as that happens, you're not as focused on the action that happened. Yes, it's a good little moment of grossness and things like that, but he sustains these wounds, and now that's part of a character makeup. So each and every approach to that kind of thing, you want to be sure that it fits in with the reality approach, or the realistic approach, the tactile approach, and not just sort of like, we're not going to build his cheek all the way out to here so we see the depth of the gore and, grossing out the audience. It's not about that. It's about the action that the characters are going through. And I remember on the veggie peeler, we tested an original thing, which is most of those peelers are smaller, and props had a smaller peeler. And on the test day, we tested this sort of small slither, and essentially it's two piggybacking appliances sitting on one top of one another. One is the sort of aftermath, and the other one is a piece of skin that plugs directly into the wound itself. So as the thing peels, it comes off, and Zach was like in the test, Zach was like, it just doesn't feel impactful. It feels like it needs to be bigger. It needs to be more. And so props really couldn't find a bigger veggie peeler. So we designed it in ZBrush, and we printed it, and we created the veggie peeler.
Oh, cool.
Cool.
And in order to have that, and Zach was like, I was like, all right, Zach, we made the veggie peeler. What color do you want it? Lime green. And he sent over a Pantone. He was that specific. He sent over a Pantone color.
Amazing.
And he was like, this color. And I was like, this is great. I don't have to, do any thinking. So we did the veggie peeler. I matched up the wound. And I remember on the day Zach came into the trailer to check it out before we brought Alden in, and he was like, oh, you went big. And I was like, too big? And he was like, no, I think it's good. It was just hard for me to visualize. And then, watching the film, you're like, yeah, it was the right size, because, it's one of those notions that when she's doing it, as Leo said, it was, he's dirty in the foreground. It's not necessarily overly gratuitous, but it is a moment that kind of makes your skin crawl a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
And he wanted to see the skin sort of feed up through there. And, that's not an exactly easy thing to do with something that you've created that isn't a veggie peeler. So we had to really lube up that skin with this sort of the Sex Glide, this Astroglide silicone. So we slathered the skin with it. And,
wow.
Plenty of lube in the trailer. We had plenty of lube.
Always. Gotta have it, So the first one went through great, and the second one was having a problem. Julia's like, oh, maybe it's what I'm doing. It's like, no, it's not what you're doing. It just keeps getting caught up. And so Kaylee was like, what do you want to do, Jason? And I was like, I think I have monofilament in the trailer. Just go grab it. And she ran and grabbed it, and then we tied a little piece to it, and I'm underneath Julia as she did it, and I'm just pulling the skin through the thing.
Oh, wow.
And Zach's like, we got it. It worked. It's great. And so you move on. But those are the kind of moments where you're like, you want to give a director what they want, and when it's not working, you kind of have to think on your toes of how to figure that out.
I really want to piggyback really quick on, because Jason is so humble. Jason and his shop made this stunning replica of Amy Madigan. We have pictures of it, and we put them up in the trailer, and people didn't know that it wasn't Amy Madigan, that it was this dummy. He created just this beautiful replica with this unhinged jaw that was able to, when the kids split it open, and the body parts, how they were able to detach when they pull her apart. I mean, Jason, you had to talk about that for a few seconds, because I feel like you don't give yourself enough credit for it.
The hard part of that whole thing was you're working with 17 children that are all, children in general on their own are kind of hard sometimes, but 17, they become a herd of wild animals. And, I remember Zach trying to, we had specific beats that we had to hear in order to attach certain parts of the bodies. But the kids are like, once they get frantic and they're like, ah, and they're going crazy, it's great because it adds to the insanity of the moment, but you also have some technical work to be done there. And so we shot that a couple of different times just to make sure that we had overlay and what we needed. But, you add the fact that it's like almost 100 degrees and 89% humidity outside, children running and screaming and kicking, and sticky blood that's supposed to be spraying at certain cues. And, I was proud of those dummies, and I'm thankful that, there was a really nice compliment, Lee, and I really appreciate that. And there's one of those moments where it's like, there were studio execs that were there that day, and I was like, of all days, you have to be here. You're going to be here on this day. Like, this thing can go tragically wrong, and I'm going to look like a dick.
And Jason's just sweating bullets. Oh my God. He's,
Yeah.
he's in jeans. And him and Mark are just, covered in blood,
Yeah.
covered in sweat, giving Zach everything that he wants. I mean, it's
It
wild.
was fun. I do remember, like, I was going back and forth on another project, and I would go to Vancouver for a couple of days, then come back to Atlanta. And I remember one of the days, Leo texted me while I was on the plane, and he goes, Zach wants to shoot the body today. I was like,
Oh shit.
it's not scheduled. It's not scheduled. And he goes, I know. And I was like, well, Mark knows the body's in pieces on the trailer if he wants to grab it. And then Leo was like, do you have extra guts? Zach wants to add extra guts. So I said, well, all the guts we have is what would come out of a body. And he goes, no. He wants the whole lawn to be littered with guts. I was like, oh, okay. So Leo had to really go to town with Mark and his team to get all that. And I was watching that again the other day, Leo, and I was like,
It's filmmaking, baby.
It's fun.
We're making art. Obviously, Gladys is dominating every aspect of the film, but there were so many fun moments that we really got to build on these characters with straight hair and makeup as well. I mean, throughout the film, it was an extremely hard script. First of all, it was an extremely hard script to break down because of all the time jumps and going back to everyone's point of view. So breaking it down was a beast as far as continuity and making sure all of, everything just stays in line. And as the story progresses, as Gladys starts to manifest in our characters' nightmares, we really wanted to show just a really subtle degradation with Julia, with Josh, with Alden. They're not sleeping as well, and they're becoming a little bit more disheveled. They're all sort of these anti-hero addicts in their own rights as well. Mark Ross and Kaylee on my team did a masterful job just keeping up with those various stages of grief and not sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
And it just added a whole nother layer to their characters. And same thing with hair, Melissa.
Yeah, the levels were very gradual. My hopes were that everything would be just seamless and not a distraction. The parents, clearly we see their nice, clean, their parents, they're fun, they're, and then there's the phases, and then we see the gradual decaying and the control that we don't know what's going to happen next with these parents. We don't know what Gladys is going to make them do. I mean, how much control does she have? So it leaves a lot of mystery.
Oh yeah. Could each of you tell us about a moment on set or in seeing the film where you felt particularly proud of how your work turned out on screen? Any personal favorite moments from a hair, makeup, and prosthetics effects perspective?
Gladys in the principal's office was just pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So I can say truly that was probably the big light for me in all her looks. And there's so many.
Full daylight in that scene. And wow. Yeah, it's amazing.
Mine was definitely the Gladys jump scare when she's in the bed during Archer's nightmare. That was the first time that we saw Gladys in that look. And Zach just really wanted a heightened look of Gladys, Gladys times 50. So we were on stage. We shot this on stage, Archer's room, and it was a beautiful lighting setup. And the room was not much bigger than the room that I'm in now. It was a very small room, and there were flags, there were lights everywhere, and everyone was crammed in there. And they called last looks, and I was like, I need to get in. I got to get in, and I'm crawling under flags and lights, and everyone's like, oh no, I don't know if we can get Leo in here right now. And I'm like, well, she needs more red lipstick. And Zach is like, you're right. She needs more red lipstick. Let's get Leo in here, because they were doing a VFX overlay, because you see Archer's son and swaddled in the blankets, and then you had to swap Amy out, and the swaddle, all the wrinkles, the blankets had to match perfectly. So they finally got it where it matched perfectly, so they could do the VFX overlay. It's like, nobody touch it. Nobody fucking touch a thing. And I'm like, well, I got to get in. She needs more red lipstick. And Zach's like, she needs more red lipstick. She's absolutely right. So I get in there, I crawl under everything. I think it was a grip. I'm pretty sure it was a grip. It said, "Leo, do you need light?" And they turned on the flashlight on their iPhone, so I can get in there and put red lipstick on. Picture was up, camera was up, so this was broadcasting on the monitors at Video Village. And you hear, "What's that?" And you're like, "Oh my gosh, what?" And they're like, "No, no, no, whose light is that?" And everyone's like, "Oh my god, it's not mine." They're like, "No, keep doing it. Keep shining the light.
Oh, that's cool.
This is cool. Actually, can we just do a flash really quick?" And so in the original, it was just supposed to be a dark pop, but
Mm.
because we got in
Oh.
there and someone did that bright flash, it became this bright flash jump
Oh,
scare.
that's so
So
cool.
And it's
cool.
Oh my
moments like
God.
that to me that it's like it's fucking filmmaking. You
Yeah,
know,
this is magic.
how this is how it happens. This is the magic that people talk about.
Yeah, I really love that moment in the movie too. It's kind of like a Mario Bava moment where it was like just so
yeah.
saturated in light and color and everything. I thought that was cool. My favorite, I think, was I had a lot. Honestly, whenever I go and see a film that I've done or watch a TV show that I've done, I'm always hypercritical. I never enjoy it for a year or two until
Mm.
after it's out. I don't get a chance to really let it soak in. But this one I've seen twice now in the theater, and I've got to say, the first time, of course, and Eliza and Leo can sort of like contribute to this. Like, you watch it and you're always being hypercritical over waiting for moments and seeing how your work looks. Second time I saw it, I wanted to see it for the story and the film, and I'm so glad I went to see it the second time because I really got to see it as a cohesive piece, and I was really proud
Mm.
of the whole film as a whole piece. I think all the looks really felt they were right. As many worlds as this film sort of shines a light on, it's all still very grounded. It's all still it feels like everything belongs in the universe that it's supposed to. And I think that that's a testament to sort of like all of us having this sort of kismet between hair, makeup, costumes, direction, that, there's a poetry to it. And obviously to Amy's performance and to Zach's direction, my overwhelming favorite look that I guess of Amy, from my perspective, is just I love her and her sick look as well, just because
Mm.
it's so bizarre. And that's a tribute to Zach as well, because we were always going to be, we took ager to her face, Leo and I, and we really aged her face up and really punched all these sort of liver spots up everywhere. And then we did this sort of silicone punch bald cap, a front and a back, where each one of those hairs is punched in so that you can laboriously punched in, and new ones needed every time you see her. And when the pieces are at my studio, I always have the hair punchers braid things, put things into tight braids, so that when we're applying these things, the hair doesn't keep getting up underneath the piece when Leo and I are sort of
Mm.
gluing it down. And it's one of those situations where Zach came into the trailer and he saw it all tied up in braids, and he's like, "Is it gonna look like that?" And I go, "No, no, no. I take those out so you can see the scalp and everything and all the hair coming down." And he goes, "I think we have to leave it. I think
Oh,
it's
cool.
I think it's amazing the way it looks like." And he goes, "Not all the time, but just like, when she's in her room and Alex comes in and she's doing her magic and everything. I think that would really, it's so off-putting." And I was like, "Ooh, I don't know about that. I mean, this is just something we do to get it out of the way." And it was perfectly segmented because the hair punchers are obsessional and they segment everything. And my God, I mean, that is my favorite look of the film,
Mm.
of her, just because it's just so it's like Leo said with the light on the nightmare sequence. It's happenstance. It's Zach being in the moment and seeing something and knowing the character so well and knowing the approach, that he's open to being loose with it, and we get to do a process of discovery. And process of discovery isn't something that is calculated. Like, there's so many people that talk about AI, or they talk about visual effects and everything, and those things are almost to the point of calculation.
Mm.
Whereas real live media and real live process of discovery is the creative process amongst everybody that's contributing to a singular vision. And I think that that is something that is sacred, but it is also something that is endangered right now.
Mm.
And the fact that we all got to tactilely feel that on this film and create characters in a process of discovery, you don't get that opportunity very often. And I'm forever thankful for that.
Well, thank you, Meliza, Leo, and Jason for joining us today to talk about your hair, makeup, and effects work on Weapons. We really appreciate all of your insights today, and thank you for making the film that much better.
Thank you.
Yeah, this was fun.
It never gets old talking about it.
Watch out now, take every word, the thoughts that linger. Winding up inside your head.
Thanks again to our guests Meliza Wheat, Leo Satkovich, and Jason Collins for their pro take on Weapons, which is still playing in theaters. And of course, thank you for listening to this special Nightcap episode. We'd love to hear what you thought of Weapons. Feel free to email us at contact@scenecraftpodcast.com or follow us on your preferred social media platform @SceneCraftPodcast for the latest news on the show. See you all next time.